And we are live. Welcome back to Honestea Talks. I'm Ranjita Singh.
And I am Ashley Peña.
And in true Honestea Talks fashion, we start with laughter.
If only you guys could see behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, before the show starts, it's always epic.
My gosh.
So this week we're excited because we have a guest. This season, we were about bringing guests on the show, people that mean something to us and can bring something to you guys from a different perspective. So today our guest is Hoyt Fong, and he is a former retired counselor and professor of psychology. So welcome, Hoyt.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
And thank you for being here today, Hoyt. We appreciate you for being on our show.
Yes, it's
I can hear you.
Yay!
No, I can hear you. I'm messing with you.
Oh my gosh.
So, Hoyt, I know Hoyt from personal training, and the thing that I love about you is our conversations. And that's one reason I talked to Ashley and wanted you to be on the show, because we are all about conversations, hard conversations, easy conversations, but just conversations so that people get vulnerable and open. And I think the topics we wanted to discuss with you today, and from your perspective, was loving people through difficulties. And what you said, and I think you said it best, was the art of making love without making love.
Mm-hmm.
Although you had different words, which I actually did like. So if you want to use those, that's okay too.
No, actually, those are the words. See, I came up with it because, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, at least my youth. And the big thing for people, especially the Asian community, was Bruce Lee. So one of the scenes from Enter the Dragons, when he takes a student and he's telling him about the art of fighting without fighting. And then
I love that.
Of course, my mind goes weird, and I'm thinking about, well, what about the art of making love without making love? And
I love that.
And if you really start digging into it, our society, we're so caught up into the whole physical aspect of sex being equal to love, or we think making love is just sex. So from that point of view, it actually makes sense why relationships don't last. So when you're making love, there's a sociologist named Daniel Goldman. He actually studied couples for 20 years. I mean, they stayed with these couples. Can you imagine, like, staying with 500 couples for 20 years?
Wow.
So I'm going to ask you two a question. What is the one item, you already got this, Ronnie, but you better get it right. What is the one thing that keeps, in this case, marriage or these couples together for over 20 years? What is the one thing?
I'm going to let Ashley answer first, because I know the answer and I remember the answer.
Okay.
Right.
Now I'm nervous. Okay, what is the one?
Wait. I got my grade book. Okay, go ahead. Go for it.
No, please don't. Look, I'm red. I'm getting red. Oh my god. Okay, what is the one thing that keeps couples together, you said?
Right. Long term, because if you can last past 20 years, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess my answer would be just the commitment to each other. I mean, the desire to love each other through everything that they go through. I don't know.
Yeah. Wrong. Okay.
I was waiting for that.
Okay. Ronnie, what do you remember?
If I remember correctly, you said friendship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So
yeah.
So what happens is you think about the weird terms people say. I don't want to get into a relationship with you because I don't want to ruin our friendship. You ever hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
And And then Daniel Goleman says the very thing that keeps us together is friendship.
Wow.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
so here we are. We're saying I don't want to ruin a good friend, and just the opposite. He's saying you should marry your best friend. You
Yeah.
should marry the people closest. And I always think about those little old ladies, the little men on a rocking chair. You know, they're rocking like me. I'm on a rocking chair right now. So you're rocking, and you're sitting there, and you really think they're just telling each other's these little cute little stories about their grandkids, or when they oh hell no, they're sitting there talking about some of the sexual exploitations, the mistakes they made, laughing at each other. And you can only do that through friendship. You only do that for somebody you really trust.
That's
So
so
true.
true.
And so the term making love is growing in love, because the issue, there's a book that I used to teach us right here. See, I don't like a commercial. So this book is I Never Knew How I Had a Choice. And I took this book from my mentor, Richard Shimasaki. He was a wonderful psychology professor. And I used that book. I couldn't figure out why he did. And then I finally read, you know why? This whole book is 100% introspective. And when you hear the term introspective, that means you're talking 100% about whom?
Ourselves.
You, yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So in the conversation that you have, if you can't look yourself in the mirror and say, what's my take on this? And let me give you a hard one. So growing in love, well, let's talk about sex, because since the topic's talking about that. Anybody have the rule of what I call the one strike rule? What's the one strike rule?
I don't know.
Does that mean, is that like your deal breaker? Is like if they do it one time, then you're
okay.
like, no?
Come on. You know what's the one strike rule? See, maybe I'm old.
Cheating?
The one
Is it
strike
cheating?
rule is you.
Cheating.
Yes.
Cheating.
So if you cheat on me, if you screw around with somebody, you get the hell out of my house, get the fuck out of my life. You're a piece of right?
Yeah.
It's all this drama, right? Because
Yeah.
it's on TV, it's on movies, it's in books, and everything else. So we've given this physical act its total. It could be legitimate because it violates trust, it violates, the commitment, et cetera, but a 30-minute act, okay? A 30-minute act saying, I'm going to toss this whole relationship out the window, get the hell out of here, and you could have been together for 5, 6, 7, 2 years, okay? And out, get out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, baby, I love you. Where are you?
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
So the one strike rule, I always said, not that it may be your deal, your rule, okay? But really, if you take the mirror and look inwards, why do I have the one strike rule? Seriously, not
that's
that.
happened to me. Like, I remember that being one of my one strike rules. And then when I experienced it, I mean, I wasn't the come back, but like, I definitely went into that introspective thing of like, wait, what am I supposed to learn from this? Why did this happen to me? Like, how am I supposed to grow from this? Because there's still something in me that cares about this person. And I never thought I would be the individual that would go back to someone who cheated on me. So it definitely did lead to introspection in that way.
Right. Because I think what would be more traumatic let's say if we're talking about sex as the base of our relationship, which a lot of therapists have said that. They've always believed that's the key to it. But how do we make love? How do we grow in love with each other? So I knew a couple, and they were high school colleagues of mine, and he was really good looking. So was she, kind of like the couple. And he got into a car accident. He became paraplegic.
Oh, wow.
So, So waist down, what? And losing a man's manhood is his inability to what? Get an erection. So if you're someone that's happened to you, and I remember him telling her, well, you're young, you can move on, you could be without me, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is a young couple still in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So she never left him. She said to him, "Do you think I'm in this relationship only because of right
Yeah.
sex?
Exactly.
Because of that?" And it was a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So they're still together to this very day, and I'm only going to be
Wow.
70 within a year
Oh
and a
my
half.
gosh.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
how do you grow in love? How do you make love? And you don't have the ability to have sex.
Mm.
Wow.
I think Ronnie said something once that is probably true. He probably says, "Well, go out there and go get some." Well, maybe that's part of the agreement if he really loved her
Mm.
and wanted her to be satisfied. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an ultimate sacrifice, I think, to be able to break. And of course, can you imagine the parent? You went out and did what? And society, well, you did what? And go, but to me, to grow in love is you really love that person.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't have to go extreme as what I'm talking about. I used to talk about in class. Okay, if you're in a committed relationship, I'll use your terms. A committed relationship, a commitment, et cetera, and we're close, and we're best friends, and we're what'd you say? We're soulmates, et cetera, et cetera. And you have a sexual component to the relationship. I said, don't have sex for 2 months.
Mm.
I love that. Wow.
And then they go, what? Oh, hell no. You know? Yeah, my best friend Ralph would say, oh, hell no. There's no way we're going to do that. So I'm not saying don't tell them. I said, I think you two have to have a discussion. Say, hey, look at what in our relationship, why are we together besides the sex? Let's put it on pause, okay? So everyone understands the pause button. Let's put it on pause. So we put it on pause. Now let's look at the rest of our life.
Mm.
And I remember somebody saying, oh, yeah, I like the foreplay. I said, okay, foreplay is great and fine, and you should do it, but it's too dangerous. You tend to go right into it, right? so I said,
it's like walking the line.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
you have to have a lot of willpower.
Yeah.
And it's still, right, because still kind of could, but I'm talking about the other aspect. Can you have a deep conversation? And let's say, what's the most challenging conversation you think a couple could have?
Ooh. I think maybe about sex.
Without having sex, you mean?
Yeah, like, because if maybe if someone's not satisfied.
Sex. Oh, that's a good one. What satisfies you? So no, I don't want you guys to answer that.
Okay.
That would be a question. Well, if you want to, this might be a great show. Okay.
Oh my god.
Or I love the one that says, "Am I the best lover you ever had?"
Oh my gosh.
And then, are you honest to say, no, you're kind of in the middle, or
Exactly.
you're kind of like below the middle.
Yeah.
And then, have you ever had the conversation? When we're making love together, using Ronnie's and talked about sex. Have you ever thought about somebody else?
Oh wow.
I remember. Yeah, we've talked about that.
Oh, you did? Okay. Next question.
No. I mean, me and you in the gym have talked about that.
Oh yeah. Right. Oh yeah.
That's wow. And that's not something, even if you experience it, like I feel like I can see how that would be like hard to communicate to somebody, like how would I be able to tell somebody?
Have you ever, Ashley,
told somebody that?
No, but had thought of someone else while...
Yeah, definitely. I have.
I don't know if I have.
So it was because I was in a relationship once, and Ronnie, you know about this relationship, but I was in this relationship, and like we didn't connect on many levels. I really don't think that we were compatible, but we cared about each other, and it was like easier to stay together, I think, than to go our separate ways, just because we didn't connect in a lot of different ways, and intimately we also didn't connect. And so I was very kind of in my own world, and I definitely had moments where I was like, imagine yourself with someone else and maybe it'll help, it was a hard time.
So you mean you actually told your lover that I was thinking about somebody else?
No, I never told him.
Okay.
I never told him.
Okay.
That's why I was like,
be clear. I had to be clear on that. I want all your viewers to know that she didn't say that.
I
Okay.
never, ever, ever. It was just something that I did in my head, but I never spoke to them about
Oh,
it at all.
sure. But
That would
how
be
honest is that? How honest is that to be able to, if they ask a hard
Oh my
question like that,
gosh.
to tell them the truth?
Super.
And for them to be able to accept the answer and not be afraid or scared or jealous
Wow.
or right?
Definitely.
Because that's like,
should they, I mean,
Go
if they're
ahead, Bron.
posing that question, they at some level must be ready to hear the answer, right?
Oh, and they have to be ready to answer it themselves.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. Good point. Good point.
And then can you imagine if both of you honestly answered that without judging each other? Or I mean, it's going to hit buttons in all of us, correct? It's going to
Oh
hit a
yeah.
button with all of us. And then you begin to think, well, maybe that time, that's why she called out someone else's name. I don't know. Like something as far as, is it okay for the person I love the most to have their fantasy?
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. That's very powerful.
Yeah. Or are you going to put
Right.
limitations on their fantasy?
Right. Am I going to start controlling you?
Yeah.
Well, that's a funny thing. Like I can control anybody's behavior, correct? Whose behavior can we control? Nobody but
No.
yours.
Yeah.
If you think you're controlling somebody's behavior, I'm like a broken record. All they're doing is acting in a way to please you, so they don't want to get into an argument.
Mhm.
Yes.
Children are notorious for doing that, and couples just repeat what they had growing up.
Yeah.
So how many times have you given the answers? I just don't want to get into a fight. I just don't want to argue here.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, definitely guilty.
And maybe arguing is one of the best ways, and you can fight in a way that's constructive. And I'm sure you guys talked about that before in something. How do we fight? How do you and I fight? Or can we fight? Are we allowed to fight?
Mhm.
Because some people go, if we fight, the relationship is gone. The relationship is going downhill. It's going to be over. Actually, it's just beginning. Because if you can learn how to fight, right?
Yeah.
And still care for each other.
Mhm.
I mean, what's that old saying you see on TV shows that says, let's try not to go to bed together angry. You've heard that term. Let's not go to sleep together angry. That's exactly what it means. So we can get into a discussion, totally disagree with each other, right? But still end the night, end the evening with the ability to say we still care for each other.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult today.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I love that you shared that, because even I've noticed myself in my behavior through introspection, through my behavior with relationships that I've been in. I definitely felt like I had to keep myself from communicating certain things, or communicating certain things that were maybe that I didn't like, or that I didn't agree with, or even speaking my truth, or speaking how I felt in the moment. There were so many times where I wouldn't speak because of that fear of like, oh, is this going to turn into an explosive fight? And I think even when you mentioned something about like childhood, even if that's what kind of you've had to do as a child to prevent explosive fights, you think that that's what you have to do in adulthood as well.
Yeah.
But arguments and fighting is part of it, but it is definitely something that you have to work through, so that you can allow yourself and yourselves the opportunity to argue and fight. Because if not, it's like you're just trying to be liked and to please them, and that isn't that doesn't allow room for growth.
No, nothing gets resolved.
No. Because what happens is you just go back into when you guys are speaking and you say you're staying together with somebody, and sometimes we stay together with somebody because of familiarity. So we're kind of used to that person. We're used to the routine. Everybody's used to you as a couple. So we're just going ahead and, every day you're like, I'll invite so-and-so to a party or wedding. Why? Because, they all think we're a couple, and, and you're kind of cute. So, on my arm, So what happens to that is we're kind of living a lie.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And by living that lie, we're really hurting ourselves, because why can't you go to that party or that wedding by yourself?
Yeah.
And they say, where's so-and-so? And go, well, so-and-so, I didn't invite them.
Yeah.
Or so-and-so, we're not getting along. Okay.
Exactly.
And they go, And then I love it. Then people go, why aren't you getting along? And I always say, oh, are you asking me because you really care? Are you
Yeah.
asking me because you
Exactly.
want a little juicy gossip so you can spread all over the
Right.
party today?
I
You
love
know?
that.
And then they get quiet. So, I mean, it's kind of like learning how to honor your truth, and
Yeah.
you don't have to share everything. I mean, I always
Yeah.
say it's none of their business. I mean, I've learned that from people that are much older than me. They always said, "Don't answer it. It's none of their business." You know,
Yes.
so caught we're so caught up in this today in social media because I'm just as guilty as looking at it as anyone else. But why do you want to get into everybody's business?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and and that's where introspection comes in is when you
Yeah.
begin to look at yourself. That goes back to the whole thing of growing in love because I don't want to take off on a tangent
I think
because
that's
in
what
order
it
to
is, right?
grow,
It's avoidance of facing yourself. So if we're always
right,
looking at someone else's business,
right,
we don't actually have to go inward, like you
Exactly.
said.
Exactly.
yeah. And let me give you one more example. This doesn't have to do with making love as far as I had one of my early years of teaching. I had a student. She was a mother. I would guess about 40ish, maybe late 30, mid 40s, and she had a son, and they loved each other, mother and son, correct? So the son was in prison. So think about this: if you had a child, and that child did the most horrendous, horrible thing you could think of, multiple, not just one. This kid did it. She laid it all, bang, 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 everything that you could think of that he did for every, and she shunned him. You know that term, shunning?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's shunning? Shunning means you don't exist. You're not my son. You're not my family. I don't know. I don't know you. I brought you into this world. Da, 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 da.
Mhm.
Every single day, he would write her a letter because back then,
Oh, yeah.
they could still write. I think they still can write. I don't know if they have electronic ability in prison, but every day wanting to just see his mother, talk to his mother. Okay, every single day.
Wow.
So in the worst crisis of a relationship, you committed horrendous crimes, plural, right? Here you are within your family or someone who loves you. Are you going to be there for that person at their lowest point in their life?
Mm.
Is it wrong what this son did? Absolutely. Was it multiple crimes? Yes. Was he convicted of it? Yes. Okay, so all these things occur. So the next question is, are you going to be there for them at their lowest point? She couldn't do it. She could not do it. And I remember, and this is, she was in my class and everyone's listening to this. And I remember she shared this in the very beginning. All the classes about 50 hours or 54 hours of lecture. So towards the very end, close to the final, all I said was, when is enough is enough?
Mm.
What does that mean? When is enough is enough?
Oh my gosh, you know what's crazy? I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but before getting on
Yeah,
this conversation,
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
my only question, because I knew that the topic would kind of revolve around what we've been talking about, but my only question will be, right, kind of like preparing in advance, is like, what is too much, right? Like, what is too much to deal with? Like, when is enough? Because you do, of course, like, want to love people unconditionally and love them through their lowest and be loved as well in your lowest. But like, what is that space of like treatment, or maybe the things that they've done that is essentially like too much? Maybe not to stop loving them, but where is that space where you decide like enough is enough, like this is not okay?
Well, yeah. I mean, you brought out a great question because the reality. You ever heard that thing about unconditional love?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You heard unconditional love. I have unconditional love for you, right? I love you no matter what, right? To the
Yeah.
darkest time. I say to all that, that's bullshit. All of that's bullshit. We have conditional love, and we're not telling you what our boundaries are.
Mm.
And
Yes.
what it is, we choose to cut you off. So when you have a mother who cuts her son off, okay, decides that my answer was, okay, you've punished him for X amount of years. Let's say you've been punished him for 10 years, okay? So let's not talk to him another 12 years, another 13, another 14, another 15. How far you want to go? You want to go 40 years?
Exactly.
So in 40 years, then you'll finally talk to him. And guess what? You'll be dead in 2 days. That's usually what happens.
Mm.
So
Exactly.
yeah, because Kubler-Ross, Dr. talked about what are the two things that dying patients ask? What do they want to know? Dying patients, to the people they care about, what are the two
they wish
things?
they would have said, "I love you more," right? Is that one of them?
Or they want to know
Kind.
if they're loved.
Right. So it has to, was I loved enough?
Mm.
And did I love enough? So that's two
Wow.
questions. So was I love enough and did I love enough?
Wow.
And then to the people that I hurt, right?
Mm.
Can they ever forgive me? To
Wow.
the people who hurt me, can I ever forgive them?
Wow.
So here you're dying, right? So you want to wait till you're dying for those things, which is what's great about death and dying, because when you talk about it, right? Boy, we're pretty forgiving when we're just about to die, right? In fact, I call it the Jesus moment. How many people are going to accept in a Christian lens, using the Christian lens? How many people will become saved? What? 2 days before they're going to die. I would take Jesus into my life, knowing I had 2 days to die. I already have him in my life. But you see what I'm saying? We do
Yes.
desperate things or things we never would do, thinking we're going to leave this earth.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to loving, forgiving, so another book I love is The Forgiving Self. So sometimes when you talk about growing in love, this whole book is about forgiveness. So how do I forgive myself 1st? So you can't truly forgive other people if you don't know how to forgive yourself. And that's that self-love and introspection. Because the politeness, of course I forgive you. Because you go, I know you didn't mean it. And then after when they go bullshit, you're still pissed at them. Inside you say, maybe you won't tell anybody because how dare I can't say it because I already said I forgive them. Okay. But inside, right, internally, no way, I don't forgive you. So
So true.
Yeah.
and it's really difficult. I mean, I'm talking to Abel to really grow in love, it's hard to look in the mirror. You almost have to look at it every day.
Absolutely.
And what if you had somebody in your life that they were a family member, for example? And I remember I was at a point, I'm much better now, but I remember at one point I got so mad at one of my family members. I said, the only reason why I even talk to you because you're my brother or sister, right? I was so mad at them. And it was true at that time. I said, you wouldn't be someone I hang out with, right? And probably you will want me to hang out with you. I go, we have to get together.
Oh my God.
And to grow in love is be able, first of all, to honestly say that, and that's the truth at the moment. And for me, being older, which I love, I can look backwards and say, wow, I really didn't like you at that time. And think about the times you hated your parents. Two little darling people. I never hated my parents. Well, oh, hell no. We've all hated our parents at one point.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
The very
For sure.
funny, like, I hate your guts. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember I said that as a horrible teenager and a young adult. And I look back at it and I go, at that moment, the very person I looked at, I did not love. I don't love you today.
Yeah.
See, I couldn't say that. I had to use the absolute. I don't know why I will never see you again. I'll never talk to you. No, well, come on. Okay. That's a little strong.
Yes.
I remember
It could be,
finding
like today.
an old journal from childhood, and I was reading through it, and I had a page where I was like, I hate mom, like, because I was so pissed at her that day. And when I reread it as an adult, because this was only a few years ago, I started crying when I read what I wrote at that time. Like, it hurt my soul that I could ever write that, but it was in that moment in time that I wrote it. But something about the relationship I have with her now, like, I couldn't believe that I could even write something like that.
Yes.
And that's our truth at the time.
Yeah.
And I think to just embrace it. Yeah, that's where I was. That's where I was in life. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
Absolutely.
that same person. But the other thing is, I do have that in me. And I talked about that psychological DNA. We talked about it, and this has to do with a different subject. But You ever hear yourself all of a sudden sounding just like your mother or father?
Oh my God, yeah.
You just said a phrase just like them, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's psychological DNA. So what happens is if your mom or dad said it, think about, let's say you live, I'm just gonna make up a number. Let's say you lived with them from birth until 18, just using that number. What's 18 times 365?
Oh God, you're making me do math. A big number.
No,
A
I'm
big
not
number.
expecting an answer. But you know what I'm saying. So can you imagine every day they would say this phrase
Oh my
for 18
God,
years,
yeah.
So
right?
true.
So you don't
Oh, I got
think
chills.
that's
I
in her
never
head.
even, oh
You
my
don't
God, I
you,
never thought of that.
yeah, because from that, the way they love or the way they didn't love, you got it. It's in you. And
Wow.
it'll
Yeah.
come, it'll come, it'll come out, a button will hit it and you won't even know. It's your subconscious. So it
Wow.
does it. And there's some great stuff in that because my dad was a man of very few words because he knew I majored in psychology. He hated my undergraduate. He, I mean, hate is not even a small word. How much he was fuming with that. And he says all this. He watches the TV show, and he goes, "All this love shit these Americans do." Because my dad would say, he goes, "Just," he goes, "You think I'm gonna come there and hug you and kiss you and all that kind of stuff?" He goes, "Hell no." He goes, "Just watch what I do for you. That's it. Just watch what I do for you, and that's how you see love."
Wow.
He never even used the word love. No,
Wow.
I think he did once. He did once. But, and I have a feeling he did it when I was little. Because I don't care what race you are, what background, how many people really do not love babies or do not love children
Mm-hmm.
or do.
Of
And what
course.
do you want to do with little babies and children? You want to, like my grandkids, I want to hug them, kiss them,
Mhm.
tell them how much you love them, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, boom, one day it gets cut off. This is for a man.
Yeah.
Boom, 8 years old, you don't touch anymore. And you're sitting there, oh fuck, I'm 8 years old, I can't be touched anymore. So
Yes.
what happens is we do these things, and then I realize I carry some of that on to my very children. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for
Absolutely.
them to hug me. Why? Because I did the same thing my dad did. I didn't say
Mm.
it, but those behavior repeat itself.
Absolutely.
And growing in love means I have to break that cycle. I remember telling
Mm-hmm.
my kids lately that I love them a lot, and it took a lot to break that cycle
Yeah.
because I don't know how many have parents who are from families they just don't, they just don't say the word love
Yeah.
except at the funeral. So when you go to the funeral, everybody goes up to the casket. Oh, I love you so
Oh
much.
my
Oh,
God.
I love you. I wish I would have told you I loved you. And I'm sitting in the back. Oh, bullshit.
I
It's
resonate
kind of
so
like,
much with that. It's so
Yeah.
funny because my mom always says, like, I don't want no one at my funeral. I don't want anybody showing up when I'm dead because none of them were there when I was here. And right. And I
Yeah.
yeah,
get that because it's true. It's like no one really shows up for you or even calls or even tells you how they feel about you. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you're gone, it's like the outpour of love
Yeah.
that they can't even.
I was
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was escorted out of a funeral because every time people would go up and say how much I loved you, I'd say bullshit. And next one goes, you liar. And I was escorted. Why? Because it breaks tradition. It breaks tradition
Yeah.
because we never expressed love when you were alive, and there's a reason why.
Yeah.
See, that's the introspection. That's taking a look at why did I never express my love to this person? Don't sit there
Oh.
and say you want to do it now in front of the funeral for everybody to see it. It's too
Mhm.
late.
I feel like it's
Oh,
been
that's
Exactly.
what I missed.
romanticized. Like the word love itself has been romanticized. Like you only hear it being said to your children, your immediate family, maybe your parents, if you have that
Yeah,
relationship with your parents, and then your partner.
right,
And like
right,
me recently, I've been like trying to say it more on my social media and like in every encounter, like I try to say it if I can, because I want to normalize saying I love you when you truly, genuinely
right,
care for another person. Whether
right,
it's a
right,
friend, a stranger, or whoever, people need to hear it.
right. And it's hard for some people because I have a lot of female friends. And when I say I love you, and not in person, it kind of works. It's better in person, but when you kind of put it on a text or email, and And Hoyt, I do care for you as a friend also, da 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 da. And I'm thinking, all I said was I love you, okay? All of a sudden, what buttons is this hitting you? And all of a sudden, you need to start talking about the boundaries and
Yes.
can you imagine what that
I
word does to somebody?
Yeah.
And there's history with it because what happens is, did a person ever say to you, "I love you," and there was huge manipulation involved?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
so to grow in love, in order for us to grow, we have to look back at our history and say, "Wow, I got caught up in that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Notice I'm not blaming that person who manipulated me,
Exactly.
but at some point you say, am I smart enough today to catch it when they're manipulating me?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Because
love
that's the
that.
real growth. That's how I grow. And I just did this to my friend when all they said was, I love you. And I laughed at one when I was opening this. I said, I didn't say I want to jump on your bones and do it right now with you. I just said, I love you. Okay.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so I mean, it could have actually hurt the relationship by setting your boundaries.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's all about time. Setting boundaries is very powerful. It isn't saying I'm setting boundaries, and I think it's explaining right now I'm not comfortable with it, but this is why. This
Yeah.
is why.
Exactly.
Or the reason why I'm quiet and it's okay to say I don't have the words for it right now, but I'm just not. I don't feel good,
Yeah.
and let me get back to you. What we
Exactly.
usually do is we're quiet and we never tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they go, remember back in 1994, when I did that? I said, well, hell, it's 2021 now. I don't even remember the situation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that whole thing of loving somebody, or what does it mean? Going back to if it's non-sexual, love is a huge. I was very blessed with a wonderful professor. You could even look in this area in Sacramento, uh, and it doesn't exist. I just asked a philosophy major at the university. I said, "Did you ever have Professor McGreal, or was his name ever mentioned?" And there's a class called the Philosophy of Love,
Oh,
and I was
wow.
attracted to it just by the title. And back in the old days, we have Tower Bookstore. I don't know if you heard
Oh
of the whole
yeah.
Tower
Yeah.
chain of Tower Records, Tower Books. So I remember going in there, and this is after I finished college, and I looked in the philosophy section of love, right? So I went to the love section, and 2/3 of the book is written by Ian McGreal. Ian McGreal. Ian McGreal. That was my professor,
Wow.
Oh wow.
and
That's incredible.
he was the kindest, the most. He taught me so much about the emotion. I didn't know how much he taught me because I was a little jerk in college. Okay, because we the guys, we were only taking classes so we can hit up on women. All right, that was our stupidity. Okay, besides our major. And then when I see Professor McGreal, and it really made me start thinking, this is
Wow.
what he meant. This is what he meant. This is what he meant. And he never pressured us to learn. He just think about that one day.
Wow.
Just remember. And then someone told me that he was one of the most renowned experts in the area of love
Wow.
as it relates to modern day philosophy.
Wow.
I'm gonna have to
So
look that
I don't
book
know.
up.
I mean, yeah, just McGree. I'll text or email you his exact name so you get it right.
Okay.
I resonate
All
so
right.
much with what you said about, like telling a friend that you love them, especially if they're like the opposite sex, and getting like a discomfort or even oh well, that's not how I feel about you. Like I'm a person that really is just, I want to tell you that I love you if I love you, because I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow, right? Like I told Ronnie very quickly, like, okay, I love you, bye. Yeah. That's how I felt, right? And I love expressing love. I think it's just so healthy and so powerful and beautiful, and you really never know how much time you have. So I have a lot of guy friends, just like I do girlfriends, and for me that's not weird or different. That's just always been the case for me, and I love them as I would love anybody. And so because it's me, I'm like, okay, well, love you, have a great day. And they're like, okay, what does this mean?
Right.
Like it's interesting because the ones that have relationships with a lot of other girlfriends that are just, friendships, it's not hard for them to understand the love that I'm expressing. They know.
Right.
But then those that
Right.
maybe don't really express that kind of love to other people, or that don't necessarily have a lot of friendships with girls, do struggle. And they're like, okay, bye, have a great day. They won't say it, which I don't say it to receive it back, but I could feel the discomfort, because they're like, does she mean like I love you, you know? Or I love you, you know? It's so funny. It's like very difficult sometimes, because I don't view it in a sexualized way or in a romantic way. When I'm expressing love, it's different than when I'm expressing love, and kind of not different, because when I'm in love with someone and in a relationship with them, it's love as well. It's just we're doing different things, you know? So we know that we're interested in each other in a more intimate way, not only physically but romantically, right?
Yeah. You made me think about a relationship I had, and at that time she asked me, it was like 3 a.m. Okay, you know how you're walking around, and 3 a.m. the bar's just closed, you just walk around burning off the alcohol, and then she says, I remember in old Sacramento, and she goes, what is love? I said, shit, it's 3 a.m. and you want to talk about love, okay?
Oh my
and
gosh.
and not that, and it really led to like 3 days of conversation, almost,
Oh, wow.
ongoing. And because, and this is the answer that taught me something, because I always thought being in love or falling in love, by the way, that's a whole different discussion. Falling in love, the
We need to
maximum
have you on your
time, the maximum time you fall in love is 2 years maximum.
Wow.
Because you stop falling in love, because falling in love is a very short-term phenomenon. So the people who keep having a relationship every 2 years, right? Or every year, every 9 months, every 12 months, you're in love with the phenomenon of falling in love. You're not,
Wow.
you're not, and what does in love mean? Okay. I mean, there's more questions than there are answers.
Yeah.
Of course.
And the honest answer I got from that conversation is when that person close to me says, I don't know if I know what love is.
Wow.
So can that be a beginning base in a relationship when you talk about growing in love? How can even I grow in love when I don't even know what it is?
Yeah.
Because
so true.
Because what I saw what mom and dad did, what I saw what my friends did, that didn't fit my definition or what. And guess what? The word I use, my definition. So we got 3 people on the screen here. You can have a definition. You can have a definition. I can have a definition. We could have 3 definitions. That's our own, if we know what it is.
So fun. It's funny you mentioned that too, because I recently started watching season 10 of Married at First Sight. And one of the guys, his nickname on the show is Mr. Never Been in Love. And he's now married to this woman who has been in love before and may still be in love with her ex, but now she's in a relationship with someone who doesn't even have what you just said, that definition of what love is, because he doesn't think he's ever experienced supposedly what it is. And that's a show is a whole nother topic too. It's an interesting discussion, but I like what you said. It made me think of that, but also piggybacking on saying it to other people. It's interesting to me from my perspective, when I do my self-love sessions, I always end the conversations with, I love you, have a beautiful week. And it's so interesting how everyone's reaction when they hear it for the first time, because I think a lot of times, like we talked earlier, people don't know how to receive it either. And so when they hear it, I see this little light, like this glow happen in that instant. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. They needed to hear that. But it also makes me wonder, they didn't hear it enough. And so it like lights them up a little bit to hear it.
And we're in a time in society when we talk about love. Let's put it in the because I grew up in education. When I was a kid, and Ronnie, I don't know if you remember the story. So when I was in 1st and 2nd grade, I had the same teachers. I don't know why, but Her name was Mrs. Robinson. I always laugh because her name was, Mrs. Robinson
Oh,
from the Graduate. But that wasn't it. Because you're talking about a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old, right? Guess what she would do every day as you come to class? Every day for 2 years, she would give every kid a hug coming in.
I love
And
that.
and as you left, she would give you a hug and a kiss on the cheek.
Oh.
And being a 6 and 7-year-old, I thought it was always cool having like a lipstick mark, on your face. And
cute.
I thought that is so endearing as a 6 or 7-year-old boy. You think you could do that today?
Oh,
You think
no.
a teacher could hug every child coming in and every child going out? Because that message to me is when you walk into this classroom, you are loved from the second you walk into the second you go out.
Yeah.
We can't do that today.
Yeah.
Other countries can. Other countries can do that. But today we are so paranoid and afraid of what I call authentic love and allowing a teacher to care to teach. I mean, the best way to learn is when you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a child or adult. And if you're not comfortable in the classroom, right? And if you don't feel the teacher cares about you, or if they're hurting at the moment and you can't even show some sort of what I call non-sexual touching.
And that's so it's incredible too, because you really never know what a child is going through, right? Like I remember going through so much at home, and then like having a teacher look me in the eye and say like, how are you doing? Like, is everything okay? Because I don't know, I noticed that you're maybe not the same way that you usually are. And that was like groundbreaking, like life-changing for me. So if something as simple as like a hug, that can really transform someone's entire life and make them feel loved, maybe in a world that they don't feel loved and they don't feel appreciated and they don't feel acknowledged.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's sad that it's like that authentic love that you were talking about. I think because false love sometimes is used to manipulate, like you mentioned earlier, it unfortunately makes such powerful moments like that hard to happen, because you have so many people that do abuse of certain positions, or maybe have use love to manipulate people, to manipulate children, or adults even. And it makes it creates a space where there isn't room then for that authentic love and those engagements that are so powerful and necessary, I think.
Well, then it's also hard to decipher the authentic love, right? Like if you've been manipulated by it.
Yeah.
Right. But we also have to tell the story of when we've been hurt. I always say the thing, if you genuinely been hurt, then have you shared that story? And have you shared it in the story of not to share it to blame, to share it to blame, to share it to blame? Because when you do that, I say it's like, you're going to see my age. Every time you point the fingers and you blame somebody, you were hurt. Let's say you were hurt for 30 minutes, okay? And that's a long time to be hurt for 30 minutes. But every time you don't share that story, you replay that in your mind, you relive it. And how many times have you relived? You were hurt more than 30 minutes. Now you're hurt for 30,000 minutes.
Yeah.
Because you have not shared that story. You relive it over and over. So I'm choosing my trauma to be my life. The trauma begins to take me over. And the important thing I'm saying is I choose that trauma to be my life. I choose it to overtake my caring and loving and trust.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and the fact is, the science is, for that 30 minutes, I was not loved. For that 30 minutes, I was hurt. Okay? 30 minutes. That's it. 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, if I choose to continue that over and over and over and over again, I choose to be a victim over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So It's your choice. It's your
Yep.
choice. And I may sound insensitive because I have not experienced the hurt that you've gone through, but I'm knowledgeable enough when I see what it's doing to you.
Yeah.
Because you're my
100%.
friend. You're my colleague. You're my neighbor. I see that you talk about this story over and over and over again. And I see you going through it over and over. You're not loving yourself.
Yeah.
You are re-traumatizing yourself over and over again.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
when does the record stop? And only one
Mhm.
person can stop that record, and that's you. It's
Yep.
not me.
Absolutely.
It's not Ronnie. It's not, no, it's you.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I'll be there for you. See, that's the most thing. I will be there for you when you're ready to stop.
Exactly.
And it's not going to be
Absolutely.
easy.
Yep.
It's not going to be easy. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, to get there, but I will be there. A true friend will be there for you, will love you at your weakest, lowest moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I can guarantee, you can count it. I would tell you, you can count it on your hand, one hand maybe, how many people will actually be there at your lowest moment.
Yeah.
Who
That's so
truly
true.
loves you.
That's so true.
Yeah, that's so, I love, obviously I appreciate and love conversations like this so much because you learn so much. Even if you've had conversations before revolving around the same topic, there's always more that you can learn. There's always more that you can learn about yourself and about others. I mean, it's so powerful. And I think that it always allows me to reevaluate things too and what I believe in. And I think that it's important to be able to be aware of these things because really how much even sometimes we throw the word around and like you said might not even have those same people that we think love us because they tell us through words that they love us actually be there when we are at our lowest, when we're not necessarily like our greatest selves because we're struggling or going through something.
Right. Yeah, and for some reason, when you made me think of when I was a kid, teenager, when I went to visit my girlfriend at her house, unbeknownst to her, I was coming by, no makeup, hair looked like crap, and I looked and I go, ah! And at that moment, I realized how much I hurt her. You understand? Because at that moment, I saw the pain in her eyes, and I thought, oh my goodness. And if you really care for somebody, your channels are open for their pain. And the pain and really my reaction was the cause of her pain. In fact, I want to see her one day and tell her that was pretty traumatic for you. So I learned from that because did I care? Is that what I care for? Because is it the image that I love? I love you with all your makeup, your hair, the way you look, and it goes into a physical. I only love you for your body. I only want to love you when I have sex. So the reality, the hard thing to say, yeah, I love you, right? Or making love is only physical with you. Because going back to that thing, so we're not going to have sex, okay? Well, we'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
So with it, going back to the original topic, how important is this to our relationship? Is it a deal breaker? Or can it change? Can it evolve into other things? And I think, be very honest with you, I really think even we talk about it intellectually, I don't know, or even emotionally we could talk about it, but to actually live it, to actually go through it and to push changes and push this envelope. Because Ron, you remember we were talking about in a session, in a training session, when I said how open is somebody, and about a man. I said, would you ever date a 5 foot, Asian man who's 300 pounds and has buck teeth and has to wear thick glasses? Do you find him just as attractive as someone 6'1", blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever? I mean, we really have to be honest about who we allow into our lives, and when we set boundaries to people who aren't attractive, people that are too big, or I'm obese, or someone that's a woman that's too tall, et cetera. We never even get past the physicality. Because if you're honest, I used to say this in group counseling when I was a student, and people say, I don't see you, Hoyt. I don't see anything. I just see the person. And I said, how the fuck do you not see me? I said, look at this. Right? Look at this. Don't you notice anything about my eyes, my hair, my skin? You mean you don't see it? It's kind of like we got to be honest about how much does that determine the gateway into a relationship. Because if I can't get past that front gate, right? How could you grow in love? I've excluded how many people in my life, in my lifetime, because I left you outside that gate.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to look at, is that I was shallow. What's that movie, Shallow Hal? I
Oh,
love
I
that
love
Yeah.
movie.
that
And
movie.
I couldn't realize why I was laughing so much because I was laughing at myself. I was realizing I'm him.
Oh my gosh.
I'm shallow.
Yes.
And we have that. We have to admit at some point
Oh,
we
yeah.
have a sense of shallowness.
Yeah.
How about that as a conversation?
Yeah.
What was it that you were attracted to me by, and what still remains on that surface level today?
Yeah.
And as we grow older, are you going to leave me when I become wrinkled and hunchback and unable to walk? And then Ronnie will say, what is it you always say? Ears and shoulders are enemies,
Yeah.
So I mean, but really, like, am I going to be there for you at that moment where we're no longer attractive?
Yeah.
Yes.
In society's perspective.
And I think that's such a great question to ask too, because I think sometimes what happens as well is that we almost like bring to the table our like makeup self, let's call it. So
Yeah.
even if it's not through actually putting makeup on, but through showing our like best side and
Yeah.
our best
Yeah.
self, right? And we do that because we
Yeah.
don't we want to be an option, we want to be chosen. But if we are chosen because of that, and then we're in a relationship now, and then something changes and you go through something and you're experiencing a low, and now the other aspects of you are showing, and you're sick and you have like mocos. I forgot to say
Right.
mocos in English.
Snot,
You
Right.
have snot.
yeah.
Yeah, like you know what I'm saying? Like the
Yeah.
person that chose you because of the fact that they were shallow, right? Which you attracted in a sense, right? Because that's what you were presenting.
Yeah.
Now is like, whoa, this isn't what I signed up for. Like I've
Right.
definitely been in certain situations where I'm like, I can't show this of myself now because then they're not going to want to be with me.
What you want to hear a deal breaker from a friend of mine? So the deal breaker was she finally shared with me when she was married to her husband. She was not allowed to fart in bed.
Oh my gosh.
So I said, so how do you fart when you need to fart? And
wait, was that her rule or his rule?
His rule.
Oh.
So she had to hold it, right? I'm trying to imagine this picture. Holding a fart, getting out of bed, walking over to the bathroom,
oh my God,
and letting it go, okay?
We're all humans. That's human nature.
I know, but I don't think we know those secret rules in relationship that we put upon each other.
Exactly.
And I laughed. I just couldn't stop laughing because I love farts. I said, the last thing I want to ask you, I said, next time you want to get back at him, just eat a hell of a lot of beans and let that sucker go and bed.
Okay, I have a question for you, Hoyt. What, in regards to the topic of like loving people through difficulties or even growing in love, like what from your profession and your experience in life, like what advice would you give? Like what are things or steps you can take to grow in love with someone?
Well, question number one, will you be there for them at the most difficult time? So you have that, am I willing to do that? So how to do that is to be able to say, I want to talk about something, because the most difficult topic a couple has is the issue of dying. So if I were to die, right, or if I'm dying, or if I have a terminal cancer, or if I have stage 3 or stage 4, whatever it is, we need to have that discussion. What if I lose my job? What if I lose half the income? What if I have no income? What if we were kicked out of our house or apartment? Because from there, I think you have the conversations before it actually happens. And in the conversation, I mean, and this sounds weird, but I really believe once you have the conversation, a lot of times I call it's our veneer. So what happens if it's just our super ego? Because Sigmund Freud talked about super ego. In our super ego, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. Okay. So or is it my authentic self, which is our ego? So if I'm telling you something that's authentic, you ask, is that if what you're sharing with me is truly your truth, right? So will you write it up in a contract with me?
Oh, wow.
Will you actually put it in writing, and we both sign it?
Wow.
Wow, that's so powerful. I got goosebumps. Wow.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in reality, because I need to know. I need to know if you're going to be there, because we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know? Because if you actually put it in writing, even if you don't go to a lawyer and get it notarized, et cetera, I have it in writing. I will share it with my children. I will share it with my best friends. This is where we are. Now, if your partner is nervous about doing that, we need to talk about the nervousness. What are you nervous about that?
Yeah.
And if they're honest, they'll say, I don't know. I don't know if we're incapable of having sex that I'll be around. Can that be the truth? And you begin with that truth, says, what would it take for you to reconsider that? Or do you want to? Usually a fight breaks out. Usually someone's like, yeah, I knew that. The only reason you wanted me is for my body. Well, maybe. And if that's the truth, then start with the truth.
Yeah.
But, I always say, go into your relationship with your eyes open.
Wow.
Don't go into it with a fairy tale lens or what you think it should be or only your lens. Remember, your relationship takes what? Two.
Yeah.
And you can only control 50%, right? 50% is the most you can control.
Wow.
And what's 50% in any test grade?
An F.
F.
F. Right. Right.
Oh man.
Right.
I think it's
so
interesting.
You need
I like
both.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's interesting because most people, and I know I've been guilty of this, is we go into it with just the idea of wanting that commitment, of just that I want to marry this person. But I would feel so much better knowing the answers to the things you just said. Like, is this person going to be there by my side if I were to get some sort of illness? Like, at that point, I'm not even going to care about whether I'm married to them or not. It's going to be, are you going to stick it out with me?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have. I mean, I think you will know through life experiences that you watch how they treat their parents. You watch how they treat their friends. There's actually a pattern in history. It's not just like one conversation. When you see, like, I have these redneck friends, okay? I love them. They're rednecks, but I love them. So why do I love them? I said, you guys talk a bunch of shit all the time. You're always talking down on this and that. But when that neighbor of yours who has a mental illness and drug problem, when he was arrested up in Reno, right? And both his parents were gone. You guys left work, all three of you got into your truck, went over there, and you got him out. You lost money. You went over there. You still watch out for him to this very day. Your behavior by doing that shows me the character of you will be there for someone and he's not even blood relative. That shows me character.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So they're like these little pieces like that as you begin to add them up and say, this is what this person's about. I don't care about, I mean, I do care about what you say. I'm not gonna say you don't, but sometimes we blow a lot of hot air because this society today is about blowing hot air on social media, name calling, this and that. But when I watch what you actually do, I judge you by that behavior.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I don't know. It takes a lot of.
And Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Judge a man by the content of his character."
Correct.
Right?
And how do you know that? How do you know the content of a character?
Yeah.
And it may not be what comes out of my mouth. It should be. It should be. If you want to judge it by our previous president, where he's in trouble because what came out of his mouth is horrendous.
Yeah.
So when you watch people's behavior, that's what I want to judge you by. I want to judge you by how you treat someone in their lowest point. Of course, we're going to say, the easiest way to love is to love when things are good. Okay. So you look good. I look good. We go on vacation together. We buy nice clothes. We go to a nice restaurant. I order a fine bottle of wine. We get a nice car. I can go on. All that shit, easy stuff. That's easy.
Yeah.
Anybody could do
Yeah.
that, okay? If I want to look good and younger, I pay money for a makeover. I'll get plastic surgery, whatever the hell you need to do. All that to me is the easy stuff. And sometimes we think that is love. We think by keeping that up, and all of a sudden
Mhm.
you'll see people who wake up. Why do you think the divorce rate is over 50%? I think California is going to hit in close to 60.
Oh wow.
Why
Wow.
do you think it's there? The real reason. That cheating dog, okay. He cheated,
Mhm.
all right? She cheated, okay? But then the hard question is, why? Why do you think he cheated?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
better yet, and this, I can sound sexist and tell me if I am, when someone says, do you think you might have contributed to that downfall in the relationship?
Mm.
Oh, hell no, not me. Are you kidding? Look at that. Look at that. How could anybody not want me? You know, it's kind of like
Of course.
It's
a denial.
superficial. Yeah.
Kind of like, right. It goes back to that 50-50. I
Yeah.
laugh
Yes.
at it. Well, that means he or she was a horrible person. They did all the wrong. I did no wrong. Well, guess what? Guess what that perception of that relationship 10 years later, if it hasn't grown from that same thought. So 10 years
Yeah.
later, if I'm still looking at it that way, you haven't grown at all.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Mhm.
You haven't grown whatsoever. And what did I learn from that relationship?
Mm.
It's hard.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard.
Oh,
Oh man. Okay,
this is
well,
so amazing.
this is awesome. Hoyt, we're gonna have you back on the show. We have to.
Yes.
It's already over an hour, so we're gonna have to cut it today.
Oh,
But we will definitely
okay.
have you on another time because this has been a
I'm
great
gonna
conversation.
I'm gonna put this all in the right place, okay, to make sure it'll work.
All right.
Oh
Your-
All right. Well,
your viewers don't know why.
No. Again, behind the scenes is always
Yeah.
it's always fun and laughter.
Thank you. And I love talking about this topic because I really believe it's a life journey. It isn't about just a classroom or whatever. Or it is like hopefully if I come back, there'll be episodes that happen to the three of us that we can bring back into the conversation.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That would be great.
Honestly, there's so much that like everything that you shared is so much that I can relate to, and even look back and say like, when you took that little piece of information from that relationship that maybe didn't work out, that helped you, right? Like
Mhm.
it's almost like I learned so much, and I also received so much confirmation of like, it is important to see how you contributed to certain things that have happened to you in relationships, because like you said, it is very much a two-person thing. And so I think that's so powerful. I'm so grateful for having you, and I can't wait for us to come back again.
This was awesome. Thank you so much for doing this with us, Hoyt. I appreciate you. And I love you.
Thank you.
Yes, and I love you.
Oh, wait a second. Let me write that. What is that?
All right. So I'm going to just do this. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Heart? One of these days, it'll be perfect. All right. We love you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.